Hi, good afternoon. I'm honored today to deliver a lecture on behalf of the University of Ghana on the Day of Scientific Renaissance celebration at the request of Her Excellency Juliette Bynoe-Sutherland, the High Commissioner of Barbados to Ghana. I'm also deeply grateful to Mr. David Gibbs, who works at the Barbados Consulate in Ghana and whose outreach coordination has made this opportunity all possible. And I will be speaking on the scientific renaissance for island futures. And I've entitled it Bridging Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean through biosecurity, One Health innovation, and sustainable development. And these are the SDGs that this lecture will cover. SDGs rather, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and also 16 as well. And to give you a bit of background about the Center for Biosecurity Studies, what you see before you is the current advisory board at the center. But before this board was ever comprised, before the center was actually in existence, this was the brainchild of Professor Akin Abayomi, who is currently the Health Commissioner of Lagos in Nigeria. He worked at the University of West Indies, KFL campus in Barbados for quite some time. And it was his idea that the Caribbean lacked a specific entity to deal with biosecurity risks that were constantly plaguing the region. And so out of this was birthed the Center for Biosecurity Studies. And the center became operational in 2019. I was afforded the opportunity to become the inaugural director of CBS in July 2020. And from there, we've started to build out the program, build out the center, all of the outreach through different media, through different fora. And we've tried to build the reputation of the center as it goes forward. And as you can see, the esteemed advisory board, several different members from several different areas, including health, policy. We have also Senator Dr. the Honorable Jerome Walcott. He is the Minister of Health and Wellness in the government of Barbados. I think that was at previously, and he's now holding a different portfolio. So we have representation from the government. We also have the principal of the KFL campus and several other important international organizations and regional organizations, including CARFA, including Stimson Center, the World Organization of Animal Health, the Pandemic Preparedness Fund. We also have the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the IACHR, and also the Executive Director of CARICOM Impacts, among many others. And we also have the private sector represented as well by Chairman of Innotech Group Caribbean, Mr. Anthony Da Silva. So when we speak of the Atlantic Knowledge Corridor, and this lecture will be framed by scientific renaissance, collaboration, and sustainable development. And the intention of this lecture is to portray the Caribbean as not being peripheral to Caribbean or to global science, but it is a living laboratory for climate, health, mobility, trade, biodiversity, and resilience. Because the global South does not only need more science, it needs science that anticipates risk early, govern complexity, protect economies, and translate knowledge into public value. And so the central thesis of this lecture is that scientific renaissance must be anticipatory, integrative, and development-oriented. So we start with biosecurity because that's the essence of the Center for Biosecurity Studies and the intention of biosecurity is to protect people, animal, plants, ecosystems, and economies, using a One Health approach that connects disease emergence to climate, ecology, behavior, and mobility. And this is done through the use of innovation, because what exists currently may not fit the best use case for what may be presented to you as the particular problem. And this turns local constraints into scalable technological and policy solutions. But this also requires diplomacy that builds self-to-self alliances for science, resilience, and development. And this is the lens through which the Center for Biosecurity Studies positions Caribbean science as globally relevant. So why is biosecurity development policy? Because biological risk travels through trade, tourism, climate, ecosystems, and fundamentally human behavior. And so biosecurity is synonymous with resilient infrastructure. Biosecurity protects human, animal, plant, and environmental health from biological threats. And for island economies, a biological event quickly becomes a tourism, trade, fiscal, labor, and reputational event. And the most serious risks are not sectoral. Often they sit at interfaces: ports, farms, hospitals, wetlands, landfills, cruise terminals, and households. So science must therefore be linked to governance, finance, communication, and most importantly, operational decision-making. So at the center, I'll take you through the evolution of the center and what we have managed to bring to the table. And this is best exemplified in these 6 areas. 1, climate, air pollution, and health early warning, where I'll show you how we use sensors to create predictive models that are then linked to public health and how we will be communicating with the public in Barbados. Wastewater and environmental intelligence from pathogen detection to decision pathways, vector-borne diseases, and REST innovation. This is by far our most advanced innovation, which we will share with you. Zoonoses, wildlife, and rodents, and the concomitant One Health risk, ports, airports, tourism, and trade biosecurity, and digital governance for chemicals and hazardous waste management. The important thing is that these are all designed based on the specific problems that bedevil this region. And this is important when it comes to innovation. Innovation is, or the goal of innovation rather, should be to solve those egregious, difficult to solve problems that present within this particular nuanced, localized context that only those who live that every day understand in totality. So the organizational lens that we will look at this lecture through is a framework that we have innovated also at the Center for Biosecurity Studies. And this is the pest-heal wheel, as we call it. And it branches out more broadly than just the One Health paradigm that we are accustomed to with environmental, human health, animal health, and environmental health, but looks beyond that and looks at the political risk, economic, social, technological, and ethical, and the legal risk. Because interventions fail when these scientific interventions or the existing systems are actually misunderstood. And the first pillar I will look at and examine is climate, air pollution, and health early warning. This was our central research and initiative that we launched at the Center for Biosecurity Studies, and where we look to quantify the level of air pollution in Barbados. And this was done using low-cost Internet of Things, or IoT sensors, linked to meteorology, fire data, and this was obtained from the Barbados Fire Service, hospital data from the largest hospital on the island, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and using artificial intelligence and machine learning forecasting to be able then to create a model that is able then to communicate this risk to the public. And this is some of the work that we were able to do. One, we helped to solve a data gap for the Barbados Fire Service, where we were able to train, and these are the drone pilots from the Barbados Fire Service, which enables the Barbados Fire Service now to be able to manage fires and hazards from an aerial perspective. That gives them a different strategic advantage in terms of executing their duties. And to the right, you will see this air pollution network sensor network rather of Barbados, and those green dots are where each of these sensors are. And so every minute or every 2 minutes, this sensor, and this is what this sensor looks like, is able to provide quantitative measures of air quality readings from across Barbados at very micro scale. And so this is important because oftentimes the air pollutants or the air pollution sources can be very localized rather than being as broad scale. For instance, Sahara dust, that's a more broad scale air pollution source. Whereas for wildfires or grass fires in Barbados, this can be very localized, as can be seen in this next slide. As you can see, some parts of Barbados are totally unaffected by these types of grass or wildfires that occur, but there can be other areas within Barbados that are negatively impacted by wildfires. As you can see, as the wildfire is located to the east of the island, the northeast trade winds blow this smoke to the left or to the west of the island. And across this journey, the different areas will be affected by the particulate matter, 2.5. And this is important because this particular size particle impacts on human health. And this is the WHO air quality guidelines, recommended guidelines. And as you can see, the particulate matter 2.5 was actually reduced from 10 micrograms per cubic meter to 5 micrograms per cubic meter. And some of the readings that you will see here are far exceed those numbers. And additional to the outdoor air quality, we are also looking at indoor air quality because outdoor air quality has a negative impact on indoor air quality. But we're not just measuring this or these air quality metrics for the sake of measuring them. What we're also trying to do is to link this air quality data to human health states, in particular, asthma. And we've built a predictive model based on asthma-related emergency room visits at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And this is important where we can show people how to prepare for any particular event, such as a dust event from transboundary dust coming from the Sahara region, or this could be a wildfire that emerges to the east of the island and the smoke plume is making its way across the island within particular areas that have a high risk for exposure. And this then also assists the public health sector in anticipating what level of demand they will have at the different touch points within the public health sector. And what we've gone a step further to do is to link this air pollution sensor network to create an early warning app, as I mentioned, that benefits the public health sector, but also disaster preparedness. So with the Department of Emergency Management, which is the national focal point for disaster and emergency management in Barbados, to be able to work together so that we be able to communicate these risks to the public. And to build sustainability within the model, both financially and otherwise, we sought also to see how we can engage the private sector. And this is through the ESG. So being able to provide them with ESG reports based on the data that we collect, we can generate revenues that will help to maintain this sensor network and also ensure that we can refine it even further to redound to the benefit of all the different stakeholders. So next we switch to wastewater and environmental intelligence, because that's where the future of infectious disease and health security intelligence is going. And we looked at aircraft, wastewater, cruise, black water, wastewater treatment plants, and also hospital and abattoirs. We are currently about to embark on a One Health AMR wastewater project here in Barbados, where you'll be sampling not only from wastewater treatment plants, but also from the National Hospital. So we get an idea of the clinical aspect of AMR, but also at the abattoir. So we can have an agricultural dimension to AMR. And we will also be looking at incoming aircraft wastewater from different airlines that service Barbados. But most importantly, where we believe the advantage comes with wastewater surveillance is that wastewater surveillance becomes useful only when linked to thresholds, verification, and fundamentally action. Because what is the benefit of having data if the data does not enhance your decision making? So we are looking to, in addition to these surveillance of wastewater, to provide also a decision-making or interpretation of that data into actionable decision-making. And we come up with the stoplight method, where you have green, amber, and red, where you have a routine signal that will be green, where routine sampling occurs, routine dashboarding, and no public alarm. So there's no sustained detection or stable low-level signal. Then you have verified concern, which is the amber level, so that the risk has now been elevated, where you have repeated detection, rising concentration, a variant or pathogen of concern, and sentinel site signal, where this then requires repeat sampling, triangulation with clinical or syndromic data, and brief technical stakeholders. And red is where the action threshold is exceeded, and you have persistent high signal plus clinical, genomic, or epidemiological corroboration. And you have to then activate incident coordination, targeted advisories, and see how then you can protect lives and livelihoods. So the principle is to protect public health while preventing avoidable panic, stigma, and economic self-harm. The third pillar, and as I mentioned, this is the most advanced pillar that we have, is the REST innovation. And REST stands for Renewable Energy Powered Silent Terminator. And this is a trap originally designed for mosquitoes and could also be extended to several other insect pests, including sandflies and biting midges. And the idea of this came about because of the dependence within the Caribbean and within Barbados to depend on chemical spraying or fogging to combat against mosquito infestations or mosquito populations. It's a form of vector control, but it also has some negative impacts, damaging the ecosystem by killing other non-target insects that are beneficial to the environment, also beneficial to human and food security. This includes butterflies and also honeybees as well. So rather than just frame the problem of fogging and chemical intervention, and we know we have also chemical insecticide resistance that increases within the mosquito population, how do we solve this problem? Well, there are different approaches that you can take, but we sought to design something for Barbados and for the Caribbean that will work for us. First, the design of the trap is renewable energy powered because we have an abundance of sunlight. So it doesn't necessarily have to depend on an electrical source. And this is important if there's going to be remote deployment of these traps. And it also contains batteries that are able to function throughout the night so that the trap will actually run 24/7. And the way how the trap works is that it will attract mosquitoes to the trap using a chemical lure or bait. so that the trap essentially functions as a human or fake human being. And the mosquitoes are directed to this. And there's a fan that creates a downdraft or vacuum that keeps those mosquitoes trapped in the catch bag, and they cannot escape because the fan is on, it's continuing to move. And therefore, they die from dehydration and also starvation as well. So it's a clean, green, efficient, and effective method of removing mass quantities of mosquitoes and thereby adding to the arsenal for mosquito vector control. And we are quite happy this has been validated at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine through their spin-off company, Arctech. And so now we are looking to conduct field trials here in Barbados, where we can then also expand into manufacturing and hopefully export as well. And to add to this, the launch of this field trial will coincide with the launch of a mosquito visitor center and environmental biosecurity living lab. And this will be housed at the only Ramsar wetland site on the island, the Green Hall Nature Sanctuary, at Green Hall Swamp. And this has been an innovation and a collaboration between Green Hall Nature Sanctuary, University of West Indies, in particular, the Center for Biosecurity Studies, Export Barbados, Orbit Service Partners, Inc., and most importantly, Google as well. They're a major partner. The idea of this is that this will be the first global mosquito exhibit where we will sensitize and educate public, and this includes residents in Barbados and also visitors that will visit the Green Hall Nature Sanctuary, where we can educate them on the life cycle, the habitat, the diseases, the range of diseases that mosquitoes can spread, and the One Health connections between human activities, human behaviors, and how that can enable the proliferation of mosquitoes, and then how we can reduce these risks through altering and amending our behaviors. The next pillar is looking at the oceans. As you know, as a Caribbean island state, we're surrounded by our oceans. And so we sought to see how we can provide innovations for a problem that we have within our nation, in particular Barbados. So Barbados is also known as the amputation capital of the world due to its high incidence of diabetes. And when persons acquire a wound on their feet, this can lead, because of the poor management of diabetes, and also maybe also poor wound management from the actual person, can actually lead to the amputation of the leg because the wound will not heal properly or in time, and therefore we have the unfortunate reputation as being the amputation capital of the world. And what we sought to do is to see how we could utilize a problem that we have, which is waste, and also this diabetic foot ulcer problem, in addition to wound care management and AMR, because wounds also do not heal, not only because of diabetes, but also due to antimicrobial resistance. And we have devised this BIM skin, which is the fish skin that is discarded, the fish skin waste from the fisheries industry, and seek to see how we can convert this fish skin waste into a medical grade and a medical device product. And this has been done previously with Coresis in Norway, but we were looking at the pelagic, the Caribbean tropical pelagic fish species that we have, and to see if we had these species, these fish skins, and how we can convert them into medical grade products that we can use within wound care management within the region. So we service our own communities based on our own biodiversity, based on our own waste streams, so that we can keep it circular. And this would also be resistant to the exogenous shocks, the economic shocks that we often see when there is geopolitical instability in the Middle East, as we are seeing right now. So the idea would be to convert this fish skin waste into higher value, leveraging the blue economy, where we can innovate within health. And the idea would be to export these medical device products not only to other Caribbean territories, but to select international markets as well. But the insight here is that fisheries waste is not a disposal problem, but it is an opportunity to leverage this waste and convert it into added value for wound care management and wound care research in Barbados, but also to the wider Caribbean. Again, illustrating that we can develop our own products for our own problems. The other pillar is biotrash to cash rather, where we generate energy and also increase soil fertility from waste. And it's a circular conversion pathway where we look at biodegradable waste. So this could be food waste, this could be agricultural waste in all shapes and forms. And through anaerobic digestion, they're able to convert these biodegradable waste streams into liquid biomethane that can be utilized as maritime and port transport fuel, as a green fuel for the maritime transport industry. In addition, the biodigester that comes out after the anaerobic digestion process can be reutilized within agriculture to be able to supplement the soils that we have in our islands and be used as an organic fertilizer rather than an inorganic fertilizer. And this will help boost the soil fertility and also boost our food security. Whereas we have import substitution, rather than importing inorganic fertilizers into our islands to help support and boost our food productivity, we will actually be utilizing the waste streams in our island to actually boost this. So we're converting waste liabilities into domestic fuel, organic nutrient supply, and soil fertility gains. The other pillar that we have is digital governance for chemicals, waste, and sustainable trade. This is a problem that faces not only islands. This is a problem that faces, I believe, the developing world. The problem is that we're import dependent. We import several different chemicals. We have e-waste as well. We use it, but then we dispose of it. But the problem is that the piles keep growing higher and higher, and also the stocks of these highly hazardous chemicals also increases. And when you're thinking of delicate and vulnerable ecosystems, the presence of these chemicals, especially under threat of hurricanes, severe storms, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions within the Caribbean, this presents a problem for ecosystems. So we have leveraged the existence of the barcode to be able to track and trace highly hazardous chemicals throughout the process from procurement, importation into the country, right up to use and disposal, so that you create a continuum of traceability where you can identify where and how much of a particular chemical or waste product is within your country. And that helps with waste management. It also helps with generating futures for strategies on how you can manage your chemical waste more effectively. When we think of rodents, zoonoses, and the ecology of exposure, the core lesson here is that the pathogen is only one part of the causal system. And right now, you can see the evolution of the Ebola outbreak. We saw hantavirus evolving from MV hondius. And so every year, it's a new zoonosis that emerges that looks and seeks to threaten our health systems, helps to threaten our economies. And this risk emerges from host ecology, climate variability, land use, and fundamentally human behavior, because human behavior is at the genesis of every zoonotic outbreak. And so we have to go beyond the STEM and seek to understand the social dimensions of zoonotic outbreaks. What drives human behavior that then increases the risk of acquiring these infections? I think that is where we need to go. And that is where we will fundamentally accrue the momentum that we need to help us to gain the advantage. So the overall integrated circular model, you can see REST, and this can also be utilized not only for mosquitoes, but also in a farm context where you have insect pests for crops. And this will help to reduce the burden or even eliminate the insect pests from your crops. And this will help with processing, access to markets, and you will generate waste streams. And you can then utilize biotrash to cash to be able to convert this waste into economically viable products. What I failed to mention is that with the biocash to trash, the important element within this is a behavioral economics model where you seek to reimburse persons from within your country for the biodegradable waste that they contribute to the national biogas plant that you would have. And this allows people to contribute, one, to a national initiative that benefits everyone on the island, but two, it also helps to reduce the burden that people face on economic burden that people face. This will give people, some relief from the cost of living that they will experience. So the intention would be to every month remunerate persons based on the waste that they contribute to the waste, the biogas plant. And this helps persons to separate their waste at source. So this allows the continuity of the biotrash to cash process. It helps the government then, be able to manage its waste more effectively. And at the end of the day, generate revenues that helps them to reduce importation. And you have importation substitution. And this then will only strengthen the fiscal state of the island and also the nation. But it's a system that reduces losses, valorizes residues, substitutes imports, and creates predictive environmental governance. And this is also utilizing CREATE, which is able to help you to anticipate not only for chemicals, but any product that you import that then you use and then is converted to waste, particularly biodegradable waste. You can actually also model your waste futures and then your energy futures, what you could actually create based on your international trade activities. So why are we doing all of this? We are modeling for tomorrow because we want to create a data layer that changes the decision horizon. We go from just merely observing when these impacts occur to actually predicting and being anticipatory rather than being reactive, where we monitor whether this is pests, waste, residues, or climate, and we model risk, demand, impacts, and substitution as it relates to imports. Decide where to trap, where to collect, what to digest, and where to regulate as well. And then demonstrate from the emissions reduction, import savings, the soil fertility, and also the food security and food production, and the added human health value that we will then be able to accrue because of this. Because useful models are not just statistical exercises. They have to become institutional operating systems for sustainable development. And what we see Barbados as, whilst many see it as a smaller and developing state, we see it as an opportunity waiting to be unearthed. And Barbados functions therefore as a living laboratory. Because of the smallness, because of its scale, we can actually implement things that will be much more difficult to implement on a larger scale. And so we can actually, rather than being recipients of research and innovation from the global north, actually create and innovate from within the Caribbean and also export to the global. So we actually swing the pendulum the other way. And we believe that this is the future for the global south because we know our problems best. And we do have the intelligence, the expertise to bring it all together. So when you look at the ports, airports, tourism, trade, these are all biological interfaces. So modern biosecurity must connect customs, health, agriculture, veterinary sciences, environment, tourism, laboratories, and academia. Because these are surveillance and governance nodes. Every country has these. And these are where the risks enter through our borders to impact on our animal, plant, and human health. And therefore, they offer opportunities for us to be able to understand the risk dynamics and predict what negative impacts they can have, and then how we can see the opportunities to actually leverage these opportunities to redound to the benefit of our countries. So as it relates to South-to-South centered diplomacy, we believe that this collaboration with Ghana, Barbados, and the rest of the Caribbean and Latin America can co-produce solutions for shared risks. And even though the transatlantic slave trade, which occurred several centuries before, this should not just be a historical route of movement of people, but it has to become a contemporary source where we show how shared vulnerabilities in all of these regions, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa, can become shared assets, shared opportunities, and through a strategic aim where we move from aid recipient posture to knowledge partner leadership. This is the future for the Global South. And at the Center for Biosecurity Studies, we are anticipating that this is where we should go. So a practical Africa, Latin America, and Caribbean agenda, we see it through 7 collaboration pathways that move beyond ceremony, because this will take more than just ceremony. This will take action. This will take engaged collaboration to make movements that will yield results. So a One Biosecurity Research Network, Climate and Health Early Warning Collaborative, where we have started already to collaborate with those in the Global South, such as NASA, et cetera. Also wastewater and environmental surveillance platform. We're also collaborating with someone in an entity in the Global North. This would include Globacon and the European Union. Sustainable Vector Control Innovation Program. I think this is one of the pathways that I believe we can gain a lot of benefits from, because oftentimes we see problems very linear, but within biosecurity, we espouse the approach of using systems thinking, where you see the interrelated issues. And oftentimes, if you have a domino effect, one domino strikes a second domino, which strikes another, and so on until you get to the end of the domino chain. What if you can have a reverse domino effect, where one singular intervention can actually have positive domino effects? So by having that one intervention, you actually create better improvements within other allied and connected systems. And that is where I believe strategy is important, and understanding how systems intersect and how they interact is very vital, because it allows you to make the minimal investment, but with the maximum impact. And within context of Latin America, within the context of the Caribbean and Africa, this is important because we don't have large sets of resources to throw at problems. We have to be very strategic with every dollar that we spend. And digital biosecurity and sustainable trade initiative, again, looking at our systems and how we can de-silo the data sets that we have and use them for our benefit in terms of making better decisions, more informed decisions that can reduce our expenditure and actually improve our health and improve our fiscal positions. We also offer graduate training and scientific mobility scheme. And I think this is important as we build bridges across the Atlantic to help us fight these problems. And then finally, science and policy fellowship program. These should be high on the agenda in all of these different regions. And the success metric should not only be publications. It should include protocols and people, trained personnel, decision-making tools, policy reforms, shared data, and deployable innovations, not for the sake of simply innovating, but innovating in a way that brings maximum impact. So, what should universities become? Universities now, in this age and in the future, should become engines of applied renaissance, not only repositories of disciplinary knowledge. So, should be able to convene with ministries, industries, communities, and researchers, train professionals who can work across sectors, multidisciplinary, not only one-dimensional. Be able to prototype tools, methods, dashboards, and interventions, and this is what we espouse at the Center for Biosecurity Studies. They take it further and translate evidence into law, legislation, policy, and practice. Also to commercialize intellectual property or IP, commercialize in the form of spin-off companies and sustainable services. And finally, to evaluate impact, equity, feasibility, and scalability. So the future, or the university of the future rather, must help society think before crisis, act during the crisis, and learn after the crisis. And the impacts for impact metrics for PhD level research and policy translation. We have some opportunities within biosecurity, looking at pest pressure reduction, how we can reduce the dependency therefore on pesticides, have early warning systems, the blue economy, how we can convert waste, fish waste, into biomaterials that can be used in medical device development pipelines, energy and soil, how we can convert our waste to biomethane and biodigest it and reduce our dependence on petroleum, governance, how we can better manage our chemicals and all of the waste that comes into our countries by being able to anticipate and forecast so that we can better manage our waste that then could potentially have a negative impact on our environmental health, human health, plant health, and animal health. And as it relates to economics, look at import substitution, the new IP, local enterprise, and export readiness. So there are lots of research opportunities where we can quantify this, and we can look at public health, market, and governance returns on an integrated CBS research model. So what is my closing proposition? My hope is that from shared vulnerability, which we all have, which we all research, we all document, that we can shift away from that. That is important. But what is even more important is where do we go? So to shift from shared vulnerability to shared leadership, where scientific renaissance is not only discovery, it is also about responsibility. To see risk early, to act wisely, to protect lives and livelihoods, and build just and resilient futures for our families, for our countrymen, for our region, for our world. Thank you. This is our postgraduate program offering, which we commenced this September. And as you can see, there are 5 elective areas of focus: planetary health, climate action and disaster resilience, global One Health and security, sustainable global trade and diplomacy, cyber, biosecurity, IT and data sciences, and biodiversity and conservation. And these are postgraduate programs in biosecurity and biorisk management. And they are intentionally multidisciplinary, where we are going to train our graduates to be practitioners, not simply academics. We need to change our countries and change our regions. And we will only do this once we translate what we know from academia into action. And before I leave, I would like to kindly acknowledge Professor Benedicta Lamotti, the director for the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Ghana, for kindly extending this invitation to deliver this lecture to you. To Her Excellency Juliette Bynoe-Sutherland, the High Commission of Barbados to the Republic of Ghana, thank you very much as well for supporting this cause, this mission, and the Center for Biosecurity Studies. To Mr. David Gibbs from the Barbados High Commission to the Republic of Ghana, thank you, because you were the interface and the touch point for that make this all possible. And finally, to the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, for allowing me to participate in this activity. So without any further ado, God bless you all, and thanks once again. This is our information at the center that you can reach out to us, make contact, and we are definitely open for collaboration. Thank you.